In the United States, the government's top infectious disease expert has sounded the alarm about the rapid spread of the coronavirus. Dr. Anthony Fauci says that the number of daily cases could more than double if the country fails to contain a surge in infections across several states.
Another bleak warning from the experts. Speaking to lawmakers in Washington, the message couldn't be clearer.
I'm very concerned about what's going on right now, particularly in the 4 states that are accounting for about 50% of the new infections, but the other vulnerable states. So I'd have to say the numbers speak for themselves. I'm very concerned, and I'm not satisfied with what's going on because we're going in the wrong direction.
The states he's referring to are Florida, Arizona, Texas, and California. They've seen infections surge, forcing governors to wind back efforts to reopen their economies. States that bore the brunt of the virus early are making quarantine mandatory for new arrivals. A vulnerable divide between former and current virus hotspots.
We can't just focus on those areas that are having the surge. It puts the entire country at risk. We are now having 40,000+ new cases a day. I would not be surprised if we go up to 100,000 a day if this does not turn around.
Dr. Fauci's was just one in a chorus of concerned voices who say not enough Americans are social distancing or wearing masks.
Unfortunately, this simple life-saving practice has become part of the political debate that says this: if you're for Trump, you don't wear a mask, and if you're against Trump, you do. That's why I've suggested that the president occasionally wear a mask.
The Republican urged the president to set a better example. For many, the stakes are too high for any political stigma surrounding masks.
From the U.S. to the Czech Republic now, where people have been celebrating a perceived end to the coronavirus crisis in their country with a massive public dinner party in the capital. Now, large crowds gathered on Prague's Charles Bridge on Tuesday and sat down to dine at a gigantic 500-meter table. The country has by now eased most restrictions, which had been introduced fairly early on in the pandemic. The Czech Republic registered fewer than 12,000 coronavirus cases and under 350 deaths. Brazil's army has been testing isolated indigenous communities for the coronavirus. On this visit, no one tested positive, but the pandemic is threatening to decimate hundreds of Amazon tribes. They have little immunity to external diseases and have a communal lifestyle that rules out social distancing. Authorities in northwestern Germany are preparing to ease the strict lockdown imposed in some districts after a COVID-19 outbreak flared at a meat processing factory there. People have been ordered to stay in their homes and are banned from traveling anywhere. For many of those who have seen quarantine return, patience is wearing thin, but testing who is healthy and who is not is a major challenge.
These employees of the Tönnies meat processing plant and other residents want out. About 650 people have been restricted to this block on the outskirts of Ferl, a city of 25,000 in western Germany. They've been placed under quarantine. But this is set to change. The mayor is preparing to lift the quarantine gradually. But he still faces one big obstacle: trying to figure out who is who and who is healthy.
There are different lists of people who are actually living there and people who should be there but probably left before the quarantine, who've likely headed home.
Many in Ferl and in the neighboring larger city of Gütersloh also want out. After all, it's summer vacation. But numerous German holiday resorts will only accept travelers from high-risk locations if they've tested negative for the coronavirus. This temporary testing facility is being run with the help of soldiers from the German army.
Every day we test over 700 people here. Honestly, we've yet to see a positive test. That's some good news for a change.
Good news, but people here are still angry, especially at the management of the Tönnies meat plant, which was ground zero for a fresh outbreak of the pandemic in this region. It's their fault. The meat plant acted incredibly irresponsibly.
The police and the city need to come down hard on them.
For now, the city has its hands full. It has to decide who may and may not be released from quarantine. Workers have to check people against lists of those who've been tested.
It's still going to take quite some time, weeks, maybe months, until we're done with everything. It will likely also take a long time until we finally have a vaccine or drugs to treat the illness.
Until then, local residents will have to live with lockdown restrictions.
And here are some of the other developments in the coronavirus pandemic. The German state of Bavaria is to bring in universal testing for COVID-19. It's prompted a debate about whether the rest of Germany should follow suit or stick to targeted testing to prevent a possible second wave. Coronavirus deaths will soon top 60,000 in Brazil, the worst hit country after the United States. The Army has delivered protective supplies and medicines by helicopter to indigenous communities in the Amazon. Thailand has begun a fifth phase of relaxations of restrictions. Schools and high-risk entertainment venues such as bars and massage parlors have been allowed to reopen. And China has reported just 3 new cases of coronavirus compared to 19 the day before. All the new cases were in Beijing. The EU has opened its external borders to leisure and business travel today, but not to all countries. Coronavirus hotspots, including the US and Russia, were excluded from the so-called safe list of countries whose residents can enter the bloc. Australia, Japan, and South Korea did make the cut, however. Chinese travelers can also enter, but only after China opens its own borders. It's a difficult summer for tourism-dependent businesses in Europe, with more EU residents staying close to home. Chelsea Delaney is on the story for us. She joins us now from Frankfurt. So what does the reopening mean for the EU?
Well, this reopening is really crucial for the European economy. As you said, there are a lot of countries that are extremely dependent on travelers from abroad. So especially countries like Greece or Italy, they get a lot of their revenue from travel, especially in this summer travel season. So the lack of travel has really impacted a lot of people and a lot of businesses. But this is also a bit of a disappointment for those dependent people because this doesn't include the United States, which about 15 million people travel from the U.S. to the EU every year. So that's a big loss of revenue. And it also doesn't include Brazil, Russia, countries like that. So it's not a total relief for some of these for some of these businesses.
You are at the Frankfurt airport right now. What precautions are being taken there?
So a big part of the safety measures here at the airport are everyone has to wear a mask. There are disinfecting stations located throughout the airport, but a lot of it is really signage. So there are a lot of signs, there are a lot of announcements every few minutes saying, please wear a mask. There aren't really things like temperature checks, things like that we've seen at other airports. They do have 2 testing centers here where you can get tested for coronavirus. One of them opened earlier this week, but you do have to pay for them yourself, and you also have to wait a little while to get the results. So I think it's, in general, a pretty light level of safety measures here at the airport.
Chelsea Delaney in Frankfurt, thank you.